career for all the players in this rookie class, and it's an exciting time for the Ravens. The Ravens had 11 picks in this draft class, and there's big expectations and hopes for what these guys can bring to the team this year and beyond. Camp started on Thursday with players arriving in Baltimore, going through their physicals, and just getting adjusted to life in the NFL. There's a lot thrown at these guys early on when they arrive here. It is kind of a fun start to this portion of the offseason as players arrived. In addition to some of the administrative work that they went through, there also was a whole series, kind of a media day with players going through photo shoots and video shoots and seeing their jerseys for the first time. That's a lot of fun for us, and we have all those videos for you posted across our social media channels.
Did you just see that? Did you just see what I saw? Because if you blinked, you missed the moment that told you everything you need to know about where this Baltimore Ravens franchise is headed. A rookie, a guy who hasn't played a single regular season snap in the NFL, just blew up a running play in his first 11-on-11 drill of his professional career. And then before he even caught his breath, he was screaming his lungs out from across the field because a linebacker he's never played with before just picked off a pass. That right there, ladies and gentlemen, is not a football play. That is a culture. That is a statement. And that is exactly why you need to be locked in right now. Because I'm Dre from Dre Talk Sports, and we are about to break down everything that went down on day one of Baltimore. Ravens rookie minicamp. And trust me, it was a lot. Look, I'll be honest with you. Coming into this offseason, I had questions. Big questions. The Ravens just went through one of the most turbulent offseasons in recent franchise history. New head coach, big free agency swings, a draft class that raised eyebrows in some places and generated genuine buzz in others. And anytime you're talking about rookie minicamp, most of the time it's filler content, right? It's guys in shorts running around, coaches blowing whistles, and nobody really knows what any of it means until August. But according to reporting from Ryan Mink of the official Baltimore Ravens organization, day one of this minicamp was something different. It had energy, it had physicality, it had moments that made people stop and pay attention. And I'm going to walk you through all of it, because this story has layers. Let's start up front, because the trenches win championships. Everybody says it, but Baltimore actually lives it. And on day one, two guys in particular passed what Ryan Mink described as the eye test with flying colors, and one of them is built like a defensive end decided to play offensive. Guard. Ben Cleveland showed up to day one of rookie minicamp looking, according to the reporting, like a man ready to start from week one. Tree trunks for arms, tree trunks for legs. A scowl on his face that reportedly tells you everything about the kind of blocker he's going to be before the pads even come on. Now look, Dre's personal opinion here. I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, Dre, it's minicamp. They're not even in pads. What does any of this really mean? And you're not wrong to ask that. But here's what I'll tell you. There are things you can evaluate before the contact starts, and one of them is movement. Cleveland was reportedly working to the second level multiple times during Friday's practice without any issues. For a big man who isn't going to be confused with an Olympic sprinter, that matters. That tells you the football intelligence and the footwork are already there. When the pads come on in August, the power was never in question. The question was always whether he could move, and day one at least opened up a very encouraging answer. But if Cleveland was the steady presence, then Zion Young was the electricity. And I need you to understand something about Zion Young before we go any further, because this kid is a different kind of animal. According to Ryan Mink's reporting, Young's physical frame immediately reminded him of Jason Pierre-Paul. Same 6'5" height, similar weight sitting around 262 pounds. Now Jason Pierre-Paul, for the uninitiated, was a Ravens pass rusher who brought everything you want off the edge. And if you're drawing that comparison on day one of minicamp before a single real snap has been played, that is not a throwaway observation. That is someone who walked onto a football field and immediately looked like he belonged. Mink reported that on one of the very first 11-on-11 plays of practice, Young burst upfield and pushed a run back into the backfield, showing the kind of edge presence that you simply cannot teach. You either have that burst or you don't. You either have that first step or you don't. And apparently, Zion Young has it. But here's what got me. Here's what really got me. Before Young even put his helmet on for the first time during practice, when a linebacker made an interception during 7-on-7 drills on a completely different field, Young was doing individual work far away from the action, and he started screaming, celebrating for his teammate like it was the Super Bowl. Now I know some people are going to say, Dre, that's just a guy being loud. No. That is not just a guy being loud. That is a guy who cares. That is a guy who is locked in to everything happening around him, even when it has nothing to do with his individual drill. That is the kind of teammate that elevates a locker room. And in Baltimore, with the kind of culture reset this franchise is clearly trying to execute under new head coach Jesse Minter, you need guys like that. You need guys whose competitive energy is contagious. Zion Young, day one, already checked that box. Now let's talk about the wide receivers. Because Baltimore went out in this draft and addressed a need that has been glaring for years. Real size on the outside. And on day one, both of their key receiver additions made plays that turned heads. Third-round wideout Jacoby Lane reportedly made what Mink described as the best catch of practice. Running across the field at full speed with a linebacker in hot pursuit, Lane fully extended and used what the reporting described as 10.5-inch hands to snare a pass on. The run. And apparently the ball sounded different when it hit his hands. Different. That's the word that was used. The ball sounded different. When a catch sounds different because of the size of your hands, that is not something you can manufacture in a weight room. That is a gift. Lane also reportedly made a nice grab on a slightly behind throw during 7-on-7s, showing that his hands are not just for the highlight reel, they work in real football situations too. Now here is my personal take on Jacoby Lane, and I want you to pay attention to this because I think this is important context. The conversation around Lane coming out of college was always centered on one perceived weakness: separation. Can he create separation against NFL corners? And that is a legitimate question that has a legitimate answer, which is, we don't know yet. But here is what people are sleeping on. You don't have to be a separator to be an elite receiving threat in the NFL if you bring everything else that Lane brings. Contested catches. Physicality at the catch point. Draw flags. That last one, drawing defensive pass interference penalties, does not show up on a stat sheet, but it absolutely changes football games. Lamar Jackson throwing a ball 40 yards down the sideline to a 6'4" receiver with massive hands puts that defensive back in an impossible position every single time. Either he mugs Lane and gives up a 40-yard penalty, or he gives Lane the space to go up and catch it. That is a weapon. That is a legitimate offensive weapon, and Baltimore just added it. And then right behind Lane comes fourth-round receiver Elijah Surratt, who showed something completely different. Where Lane is the big contested catch monster, Surratt reportedly flashed quickness underneath, catching a pass and exploding through traffic across the field. Mink specifically highlighted that for a bigger-bodied receiver, his quickness jumps out immediately. Now what I love about this is that Baltimore essentially drafted two different types of receiver problems for opposing defenses. You want to play physical with Lane? Fine, good luck. You want to go soft underneath to take away Surratt's quickness? Then Lane is running free on the outside. That combination, layered on top of Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman, gives whoever is coordinating this offense real toys to work with. Dre's opinion: year one, Surratt is probably the more immediately polished player between the two rookies. But Lane's ceiling? Lane's ceiling is why you stay. But here is the story that genuinely set my soul on fire. 5th round running back Adam Randall. And before we even get to what happened in minicamp, I need to set the scene for you. Randall is a converted college wide receiver. He came into the draft as one of the more intriguing hybrid prospects in the class, a guy with legitimate receiving skills but still developing as a traditional running back in terms of pass protection and all the inside zone reads that take years to master. Baltimore took him in the 5th round, and I want you to understand what he walked into. He is going to learn the position in real time from Derrick Henry, one of the most physically imposing, respected running backs of the modern era. And Randall also has Justice Hill in that same room, a veteran back who is genuinely elite in pass protection. That is a classroom. That is a graduate program for a young running back. And on day one of minicamp, before any of that mentorship has even really begun, Randall walked out onto the practice field and broke a helmet. Not metaphorically. Literally. According to Mink's reporting, Randall went through a drill where receivers catch a route to the sideline, take contact from a blocking pad, stiff arm a helmet attached to a stick, and then hurdle over a pad thrown at their feet. Randall's stiff arm apparently produced a distinct crunching sound, and the helmet had to be fixed at the end of the drill. On day one of rookie minicamp, I don't care what position you play or what your role on this team is ultimately going to be, when a fifth-round running back shows up on his first day and physically damages the equipment, you are watching someone who belongs in an NFL uniform. Randall also reportedly looked the part physically. Massive quads, impressive height for the position, and a smooth quality to his receiving work that reflects his wide receiver. Background. Ryan Mink drew the physical comparison to a young Gus Edwards, which, coming from someone who covered this franchise closely, is not a casual reference. Gus Edwards was a bulldozer. If Randall brings any of that running power and adds it to the pass-catching ability he already has, Baltimore may have found a real gem late in this draft. Now let's talk about some of the guys who flew a little more under the radar on day one, because this Ravens draft class has depth and Baltimore's culture has always been about finding guys at every level of the roster. Cornerback Chandler Rivers reportedly more than held his own going up against Jacoby Lane in individual coverage, not allowing a completion when the ball came his way, despite giving away 6 inches in height. 6 inches. And he still locked it down. Mink reported that Rivers plays a lot bigger than his size suggests, and that fits perfectly into the kind of corner Baltimore has traditionally valued. High intensity, physical. Willing to compete against anyone, regardless of the matchup. The knock on Rivers coming out was always going to be his size. And he answered that on day one. 7th-round defensive lineman Rayshawn Benny reportedly looked every bit of his 6'3", 305-pound frame. A physically imposing presence that, according to the reporting, made it. Genuinely surprising he lasted until the 7th round, despite his college production at Michigan. And then there were the undrafted guys, who may have made the most noise of anyone on the defensive side. Undrafted linebacker Reed Williford out of Charlotte recorded an interception early in 7-on-7 drills. Undrafted safety Silas Williams from Miami of Ohio recorded 2 interceptions, the second of which reportedly sent the entire defense into a frenzy. Turnovers. Forced turnovers. In a franchise that has been plagued by an absolutely brutal turnover differential in playoff losses throughout the Lamar Jackson era, seeing the defense generate that kind of takeaway mentality, even in rookie minicamp, matters for the culture Jesse Minter is trying to build. And speaking of Jesse Minter, the man is running a fast-paced practice that was specifically noted in the reporting. Moving in and out of drills quickly, setting a high standard from the very first rep of the very first practice of the entire off-season program. That is intentional. That is a first-year head coach putting his stamp on what this program is going to look like, feel like, and demand from everyone in that building. And based on day one, the rookies showed up ready to meet that standard. Here is my overall read on day one of Baltimore Ravens rookie minicamp, and I want you to hear this clearly. This is not just a story about a bunch of rookies doing well in shorts on a practice field. This is a story about a franchise that went through a genuinely difficult offseason, fired a legendary head coach, made big financial commitments in free agency, drafted players, who were questioned in some cases, and is now showing through actions, not words, that the standard has been reset. Zion Young screaming from across the field for a teammate's interception. Adam Randall physically breaking equipment with a stiff arm on day one. Chandler Rivers refusing to be bullied by a receiver 6 inches taller than him. These are not just football moments. These are character moments. And in the NFL, character is what separates the teams that talk about winning from the teams that actually do it. Baltimore has a chance to be genuinely dangerous in 2026. They have the quarterback. They are building the supporting cast. And if this rookie class delivers even a fraction of what day one suggested it might, this city is going to be very loud come January. I am Dre from Dre Talk Sports, and I have been watching this league for a long time. When a minicamp gives you this many stories worth telling, that is not an accident. That is a program headed in the right direction, fast. Now, before I let you go, if this video gave you any kind of energy, if you felt even a little bit of what I felt watching this story come together, then do me one favor. Hit that like button right now. Not tomorrow, right now. Let the algorithm know that real sports coverage still matters, that facts and fire can exist in the same video. Drop a comment down below and tell me which rookie from day one has you the most excited. Is it Zion Young's intensity, Randall breaking helmets, or Lane making catches that literally sound different? I want to hear from you. And if you are not subscribed to Dre Talk Sports yet, what are you doing? Hit that subscribe button and ring that bell so you never miss a video. Because we are not slowing down. Baltimore Ravens coverage, NFL drama, and everything in between, we cover it all. No filter, no fluff, just the truth. I'm Dre. I'll see you in the next one.